We're live. We are live.
Yeah.
Is anyone listening?
I don't know. We'll have to find out. Knows if we're on.
Oh, we're on. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Kilhoman's Open Day. Sorry you couldn't join us in person. Fortunately, we've had some great weather this week, and everybody's been enjoying themselves, getting a bit redder by the day. But today, actually, funny enough, it's a little bit cloudier, so not quite so sunny, which I think everyone's a bit pleased about, which is not often you say that on Islay. We've had 3 weeks now of dry, sunny weather, which is pretty unusual for Islay, but it's great for everyone who's visiting the island to do the tours around the distilleries and go to all the open days. And today we've got a good crowd in, which is fantastic, and hopefully everyone's enjoying a bit of live music. The Islay Pipe Band, which Kilhoman sponsors, and every part of the distillery is open, so everyone can tour around and have a look to see what goes on, and ask the guys in each department, what they do on a daily basis. Anyway, Peter, I don't need to ramble.
You've been enjoying some Kilhoman cocktails.
Yeah, no, I've been enjoying a dark and gourmet.
Yeah.
Dark and gourmet, which is Loch Gorm and ginger and spices. Oh no, it's great. Actually.
One too many, or are you still ready?
I'm on my. No, I'm very professional. I've literally had 3.
Yeah. Well, so we're here to do the lineup. So hopefully you've all got your pack. Well, some of you have got your tasting packs with Cognac matured, Fino matured, which are our 2 latest releases that we have only just released, really. Loch Gorm, which was done a couple of months ago, the latest one for this year, and then the Fèis Islay release, the one that's just been released. So in the visitor centre, so behind us here, there might be a bit of noise, but they're all having a few drams and getting on. So hopefully you can hear us, and we'll take you through the 4 drams now. So
the first one is the Cognac cask matured, fully matured in Cognac barriques, and for
2016 it was put in.
So 6 years.
Yeah. Well,
7 years.
6 or 7.
6 to 7 years of age, and bottled at 50%. And this is the one here, and released about a month or so ago. And this is quite interesting because on the nose it has a sort of spicy, herbaceous sort of cinnamon character, which is what I enjoy with our spirit is to experiment with different cask maturations and full maturations. So to taste the 2, the Cognac and the Fino, which are completely different whiskies, is great because it's the cask influence that has the biggest impact. So this has a lot of spicy richness about it, sort of herbaceous character, which I actually like. And I think the comments that we've been receiving, because we've been on the European tour, have been very positive, because the Fino and the Cognac are very different in character. So 50%, that's just about allowing the spirit, it's better at that higher strength, Kilhoman, I believe. So the extra strength gives a bit more bite and a bit more sort of character to the dram that you're enjoying. But I think, and
it's the very first time we've released something of this.
Yeah.
Do we have more in the warehouse?
We have a few more, but we're just about to buy some more direct from one Cognac house. I have to keep quiet about where I'm buying them from. But I think getting them from one house means you get that consistency. We bought these from a cooperage, so we're not sure they all came from the same Cognac house. And we have quite a good relationship with a couple of Cognac houses, so we're looking to buy the next lot direct, and then you get that consistency and character. But it's quite fiery on the back of the palate. A little bit more fiery than quite a few Kilhoman drams. And that's not a bad thing. It's a different character. And
so
the comments...
Just to say, the peat's still there, but again, it's not like a strong smoke that comes through on it.
There's not a huge amount of smoke and sort of briny, salty character coming through. But it's got a character all its own. And I think that's just down to the cask that we've used. And we love experimenting with different cask types. We've now understood that fortified wines tend to work better than still wine. White wine is better than red. Red, we tend to find it being a bit dry and a bit tannic and not having the balance we're looking for. So we're not tending to fill many red wine casks. So someone pointed out in the masterclass I did earlier that we have filled some red wine, but we've tended to go with shaved, toasted and recharred ex-red wine casks from Portugal, which is quite a strong red wine. And then they're shaved, toasted and recharred, which gives them another life and freshens them up a bit and gives us summer fruit character. But on the whole, fortified wines tend to work that much better. I think this has worked well. It's interesting. I always find it interesting to hear about people's comments. So I'll be interested to hear your comments on this particular dram.
We've got a few joining. It seems from all over the world. We've got Japan, Australia, Seattle, Brooklyn, California, Texas, Croatia, Israel.
Israel. Yeah.
So we've got a few.
Yeah.
Catherine,
she's always
sending messages from behind the cameras to all your comments, will let us know what you send in. So if you've got any questions, please do let us know. She's also said someone's from Tokoyo, which I presume means Tokyo. So, but yeah, so the cognac cask is something we've done the first of, but you envisage us doing more in the future?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's worked. I'd like to take it further out in maturation to see what else develops. Maybe that sort of slightly fiery character on the palate just calms down a bit. But on the whole, I like it. I like these sort of young, vibrant drams because I think as they develop in the cask, they just get a bit softer and more wood interaction. That's not always a good thing. So there we have that one. And the Fino. The Fino is a very different style and character of whiskey.
I would hate to interrupt you.
Are you going to interrupt
briefly.
me? Okay.
All I'm going to say is,
say?
is for those, because there might be some people listening who don't know where it is, that they can't find it yet in the country. So this was only released very recently.
Well, sales marketing.
Yeah. Maybe only, 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it is coming. So whether you're in Japan or you're out in Australia and it hasn't got there yet, it should be on the shelves in a couple of weeks' time, couple of months' time as it gets through, filters through. But it came on the UK sort of early May. So
yeah, okay.
soon to be with you. 15,000 bottles.
Yeah.
I got to get sales marketing in as well as
16. Was it 16?
15, just over 15.
Just over 15,000 bottles. Yeah, it takes a bit of time to get around different markets. Certainly the long distance markets, it can take up to 6 weeks or even longer. So be patient and it should be in your market soon, I hope.
Yeah, and it was released at the same time as the Fino. So the next one that we're going to talk about is the Fino, and they were released at the same time as sort of showing different cask types of the experimentation we're doing. There's mezcal, red wine, Madeira, Sauterne, port, all these different cask types we're experimenting with. So this year we're doing 1 or 2 more releases just to show the variation of cask types that we're using.
So I think what people need to realise is that we don't do a lot of these experiments. They don't form a big percentage of what we fill. Obviously, still we fill 60 to 65% is filled into ex-bourbon. We're now buying our ex-bourbon cask from Breckenridge Distillery. Our contract with Buffalo Trace sadly expired, and that was to do with them having enough distilleries in their portfolio around the world that they could didn't need to sell to third parties. We're really delighted with the Breckenridge cask that we've had delivered, and we'll just wait and see how they develop in the next few years. But it's great to have another contract with another distillery direct, because I think you get that consistency. And I'm going out later this year to visit them. I'm looking forward to going to Colorado, actually. It'd be nice to go to Colorado.
Probably a family trip. We'll all go.
No, I don't think you'll go. But I might take your mother. And I'll take the opportunity to visit Impex Beverages, who are an importer from San Francisco. And I'm waiting to hear from Sam. If you're listening in, Sam, get back to me. I did send you an email the other day.
Did you see there being any difference big difference, or is it going to be a subtle difference in terms of Breckenridge to Buffalo Trace?
I think it'll be a subtle difference. I think there will be a difference. I don't doubt that, but I'm hoping it's a subtle difference rather than a big difference.
Yeah.
When we nose the cask, Robin and I nose the cask, you have that lovely fresh sort of pear drop character coming through. So I can't see them being very, very different. I think the big thing for me is the consistency of them. The only issue we have is their top fill, and they palletize them when they're maturing them in the warehouse because it's easier to get more casks in when you put them on pallets upright. So they've top filled them. So we warehouse everything on their sides. So we just have to make sure the bungs are rammed home pretty firmly so that we don't get any leakages. But we've used top fill casks before. We bought some from the ex-Cooley Irish distillery, and we didn't have any problems. So we're not expecting any issues with those. Robin will be just keeping an eye on as we go through.
Very good. So we want to move on to the...
Oh, I can move on to that now.
Fino. Well, I didn't, just keeping you into the time frame.
Okay, time frame.
So the Fino is the one up next. So Fino cask matured, and we have done another one in the past. I think it was
2018, was it?
19.
18, 19.
2020.
Catherine, behind the camera.
We were close.
No one's seen Catherine in front of the camera. We've tried to persuade her, but she's a bit camera shy.
Yeah. So this was released at the same time as Cognac about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So it'll be coming out soon, if not with you already in the nearer markets. Similar number of bottles to the Cognac, just over 15,000. But it is slightly different character from the previous one.
Yeah. Bit older. The last Fino we did, but I think everyone quite rightly said it was a bit youthful. This has got a bit more age. This is over 5 years of age, fully matured in ex-Fino, dry sherry casks. These are butts, so these bigger casks. We're looking forward. We bought more, and we're looking forward to taking that out a bit further the next time we do a release. So I always get on the nose this sort of nuttiness, sort of cashew nuttiness about it. Fresh, but certainly a certain nuttiness to the character of the Fino cask that we filled. And
someone just saying there that the first one was great, sweet, spicy, light smoke.
Oh dear, what's he saying about this one?
No, I think that's a compliment. So hopefully that keeps coming.
So I think this has just got a little bit more age, maybe a bit more depth of character, and lighter and fruitier than the Cognac. The Cognac has this spicy sort of herbaceous character, whereas the Fino has a little bit more sort of sweetness, a bit more depth.
Yeah, definitely on the palate in particular.
Yeah,
that sweetness comes through.
Yeah,
and a nice long sort of sweet finish to it. Probably getting less smoke on this one here. It's more towards the sweetness. Yeah, and as you said, the fresh fruits come through, but it's a real long finish to this.
And look, I think it's all about showcasing Kilchoman in different formats, in different styles, and the cask to me is the key element to give you that different character. And we're lucky that our spirit character does mature pretty well in full maturation, different cask types, mainly fortified wines, as I said. So that's slightly higher alcohol strength. We're talking about between 18 and 23, 24%. Anything lower, still wine, just tends to not get the balance right, and you get too much influence from the cask. So we've learned over the last sort of 18 years that fortified wines tend to work better for full maturation. And if we're using wine casks, it's mainly finishing that work better. I think in my master cask this morning, I did a Sauterne finish, and that was exquisite in terms of the balance between the Sauterne cask influence and the spirit character. And it really worked. But it's about getting that timing right and making sure you don't leave it for too long. So
what you're saying is you don't like this full maturation Fino, is that what you're
saying? No, was he listening? Was he listening to what I was saying? Does he listen to what I'm saying? I was saying that fortified wines for full maturation, if you listen to me, full maturation in fortified wine tends to work better than still wine at the lower strength. Between 12 and 14%, you get a little bit more interaction from the cask type, and therefore you don't get the balance between the spirit and the cask. But look, I think this. I don't know what the opinion of the person who was talking about the previous release, but I think that extra age has just allowed the development of the whiskey in these casks a bit longer.
Yeah,
it's helped.
And I see some comments coming through a bit earlier about the bottle. So we did put a competition up recently to you can win a Fèis bottle for liking our page and things. So I think there's a few questions about when they're going to win that. So that's tomorrow, I believe, it's going to be announced. So you can get a chance. So even if you didn't make it to Islay, you can win a bottle of that, because usually all the festival releases and distillery exclusives you can only get here. So a chance to win that. That was a message through from Catherine. So.
Like your Facebook page.
Yeah.
Oh yes, apparently.
We'll leave you out the social media stuff.
Yeah, I'm not really very technical on that. I'm a bit of an old. I better be careful what I say. An old stick or whatever. So I leave the social media and that side of things to the others.
Yeah, you stick to the whiskey.
Yeah. Well, that's what's the whiskies. That's what the distillery is all about.
Yeah. You make good whiskey, so it's easy for us to sell it.
Well, I have said that. And look, I mean, in all seriousness, we enjoy people's comments about our whiskies because it's the consumers that are ones who are going to be the ones who decide whether we're doing a good job or not. And I think doing these tastings and doing these tours, we just finished the European tour, is very helpful. It means that we can get in front of consumers and get the feedback, which is hugely important because without that, we wouldn't have a business.
Someone saying they prefer this Fino to the previous one. I think I agree. In the first one, it was a real light Fino influence. It was more apple, sort of a bit of fruit, fresh fruit coming through on the previous one. Whereas this one, lots more sweetness, the sort of caramel sweetness comes through, and a whole lot more on this whiskey than it did on the previous one. So I think I do prefer this one as well.
And I think with full maturation of these different cask types, it's more difficult to know when they're going to be reaching their sort of the full maturation. And therefore, it's more of a sort of experiment. We know how long we can take the bourbons and certain the sherries, and it's more difficult to work with these experimental casks. And the other thing is, when we buy bourbon barrels, we get the consistency. We know how long we can take them out. With these cask types, they can vary from batch to batch, and therefore you have to start all over again with the next batch of casks you buy because you don't know that they're going to react in the same way.
And is there any cask types maturing that we haven't released yet?
Pinot de Charente. We've done some Marsala, but we haven't done a full maturation. We're looking to do one of those. We haven't done tequila and mezcal limited releases. We've done a few single casks, so we hope to be doing those as well. And the smoky agave style tends to work well with our smoky sort of salty character as well. So that's going to be interesting. We've just bought some rum casks from Martinique. We've always struggled to get rum casks that have given much influence because they're sort of older casks and they haven't got much influence left in them. So working with this one distillery in Martinique, we hope that we can get something that we can release that works because we haven't really done a rum release as such yet. But we're always on the lookout for new cask types. And I was visiting the cooperage that we work very closely with in Portugal, and we're getting some quite exciting casks from them in the future.
Yeah, and someone asking now about whether it's possible to buy distillery exclusive bottles without visiting the distillery. Unfortunately not. So I think you are the one who chooses some of these casks, and I think it's about almost rewarding the people who make the effort to come all the way to Islay to visit the distillery. There is always distillery exclusive single casks, the Fèis Yellow bottle today that is only available from the distillery, and we feel that's pretty important to have something that people can visit the distillery, get something they call back home, wherever it may be around the world. So unfortunately, those won't be shipped out to you.
I think we do exclusives for various markets around the world through our distributors, and that's our way of rewarding a key partner, whether it be a retailer or a bar. And we're doing the same really here in doing exclusive through the shop. But we only have one available at any time, and it's just something special for those visiting the distillery.
We got another question, which you won't be able to read because your eyesight's probably not. No, I don't think for the people watching you need to get too close to the camera. But have you done any casks that you that just did not work with our distillate? And is there anything you'd love to try that you haven't been able to source a cask from yet?
I think there are always things out there that you want to try. I don't actually, funnily enough, the Sauterne cask, we did a full maturation Sauterne release, which I found the most tricky to get right because it was all over the place, and then it came round a little bit, and then we released it at 6 years of age. I wasn't 100% sure, but we got very good feedback. So I wouldn't say that we've ever come across anything we've released, though we have filled some chateau bottled red wines from Bordeaux that after 3 years really hadn't done very well. So we've decanted those out of those casks and won't be filling. And that's why I was talking about red wine not maybe working. But I think that's a simplification. I think that certain red wines will work better than others. So I'm not stopping looking for certain red wines. I think those bold, rich red wines, maybe from Rhone Valley or from Third World, Chile, or with a bit more richness. The ones from Bordeaux make me a bit more austere and a bit drier and more tannins coming through. So we just need to keep experimenting and see where we go. But they're more difficult to work with, I would say, the red wine.
And someone's asking what the clips we're wearing are. So these are the microphones. Mine's a little closer than his because he tends to shout through his microphone. So just for your ears, that one goes a little bit lower down his chest. But another question coming in now is any casks from the South Australian wine industry?
Well, not as yet. We're keeping it to European wine selection. We have been offered various casks from Australia. We haven't taken any at this stage. So look, there's a whole plethora of casks that we could fill, and we're only really just starting on this journey. So we'll keep going. Though I point out that fortified wines just tend to work better. But look, we're always interested to trial anything that might work.
Very good. So to move on to dram number 3, and someone obviously stuck this one on by hand and quite a crooked foot label to it. But the Loch Gorm for this year, so this is the 2023 version. The Loch Gorm sort of part of our core range. So we do Maccabee and Sane releases that are available throughout the year. And then Loch Gorm and 100% Islay are the 2 releases that we do every year, but they're just done in small batches once a year. So every spring we do some.
Here we are.
We're back. There was panic for a second there. But yeah, so Loch Gorm is the one I'm talking about at the moment. And early on, we maybe used hogsheads. Later, ever since the first couple of years, we then moved to sherry butts. Sometimes it's more fresh, sometimes more refill casks. Sometimes the age is slightly older, or you may choose a number of different years in there. So this year, I think it was a minimum 8 years of age for these casks. So some slightly older ones. And we went for mostly fresh, I think 20 fresh, and just a couple of refill casks in the batting. And everyone is slightly different, isn't it? And even though there's a similar character, because they're all entirely matured in Oloroso sherry, they're always going to have big notes of that darker fruit, slightly cooked fruit, raisins. The smoke isn't in Maccabee, mostly ex-bourbon casks. You tend to get that sort of barbecue smoke coming through, whereas with the Loch Gorm, it tends. What are you itching?
Yeah, I'm getting a sample.
Do you want a hand with that?
No.
Yeah, so anyway, so Maccabee is you get that, more salty smoke, that little light, fresh, salty smoke. And a Loch Gorm, you get more of that barbecue smoke coming in, a slightly richer feel to it.
Barbecue on a beach.
Barbecue on a beach, is that
Barbecue on the beach. It just gets that sort of smoky bacon character.
Yeah.
And I think it works really well. I think that Islay peaty smoky whiskies and sherry can not always work. And I think the combination, when you get it right, is fascinating because you've got so many different characteristics coming through. And for Loch Gorm, it's always been interesting. And each release we do is slightly different, even if the age is pretty similar. We use Oloroso sherry butts for Maccabee, and we use them for Sane. So there's always a bit of pressure on the number of casks we've got in the warehouse. And so we're filling more Oloroso sherry casks so that we can release more of our Loch Gorm and have more of these casks for Maccabee and Sane. But, I love this because I think it showcases the Kilchoman spirit with sherry, but making sure that the distillate shines through and is not overpowered by the sherry.
Yeah, I think is that the reason we moved from the hogsheads? Because in the first, 2 releases, we used hogsheads, and they were real big sherry, only maybe 4 or 5 years old.
Oh, did we?
They were big sherry releases, yeah.
Did we?
See, I remember this stuff. You just.
I'm not sure we ever used hogsheads.
We did. In the first one, it was
Oh.
called Sherry Cask Matured. It was
Oh.
a lot, sort of
it may have
the
been.
same packaging, and it was in the hogsheads.
Yeah, so just so you're aware, Saneg is mainly sherry hogsheads.
No,
and-
no, sorry, I was talking about Loch Gorm.
No, I know you were, but I'm just explaining because you didn't explain it very well. So Saneg's mainly sherry hogsheads, big hitting sherry notes, and the colour and character comes through a bit quicker. And then butts, mainly butts, but I think Peter's right. In the first instance, we use sherry hogsheads for Loch Gorm. We call it sherry cask matured.
Yeah, and it
Loch
kind of
Gorm.
that was then
Yeah.
only 4 or 5 years old,
Yeah.
but it was huge sherry notes.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the butts work that much better because it's slightly slower, more integrated maturation. Where you very much taste the Kilchoman smoke. You still have Yeah. It says we're live.
Yeah. Okay. Are we live?
Yes.
Because we come back on.
Are
we on the same?
I think we are.
Comms department.
Oh, we're back. We're back. Yeah, sorry. Catherine will probably take the blame for that as communications department.
The comms department.
But yeah, we missed you for 5 minutes there, but we were just going through the Loch Gorm. And hopefully a few of you come back in and rejoin us. But we're on to the Loch Gorm, and yeah, a decent dram.
Yeah, I think we've been through it, sort of barbecue on a beach, smoky bacon, the combination of the sherry butts, different ages, some older, 11, I think, 12-year-old, down to 8 years of age. So it's over 8 years of age, but we've used quite a few older casks in the vatting. My own personal view is that my own preference would be that this has got a wonderful balance about it. Not too much sherry influence. I know a lot of people enjoy that big hitting sherry note, but this has got a balance about it, allowing the Kilchoman distillate to shine through, which is important to me. Look, I mean, everyone has their own opinion on this. We try and sort of change it up a bit each release we do of the Loch Gorm, because they're all similar ages at the moment, because the stock profile in the warehouse isn't as good as we'd like. But we're filling more. I think I said this. We're filling more sherry, but
is this fine? Catherine's just forgot her thing.
So we're filling more. So in the future, we'll be able to release more, and we'll have a little bit more flexibility. I think it's the flexibility we need in choosing these casks. But I'm delighted with how this has worked out, and hopefully you will as well.
Yeah. I think you've always said that the older the bourbon barrels get, the more maturation there. That tends to be the way you're leaning, which is why we fill 70-80% into those casks. But the sherry has certainly been popular, as you mentioned. Loch Gorm's one of our best-selling limited releases. Whenever we seem to release that, it flies off the shelf. And likewise, today we released a single cask for Fèis. Today we released one of our oldest casks we ever filled back in 2006. We released a 16-year-old sherry butt single cask for today. So that seems to be going down pretty well. We don't have much left of that on the bar anymore.
Where's your phone?
My phone's in my pocket.
What's it doing in your pocket?
That's fine. Well, I can see the comments as they come in.
Oh, right, there. Okay. I don't know what I was going to say.
No, so we've been through the Loch Gorm. So we got through the sort of, I guess, full maturation Cognac, Fino, and Oloroso sherry. So showing quite a few sides of the cask maturation. And now it's probably something back towards more of a, not the typical Kilchoman style, but in sort of bourbon sherry and obviously special being our own barley, which is the Fèis release this year. So the Fèis 2023 bottling is 100% Islay release. So it's a single farm, single malt from the farm here at Kilchoman. So we grow, in excess of 200 tons of barley every year on the farm. We malt that by hand on the floor here. Peat it, mature it, distill it, bottle it, right up to the end product, all done here on the farm. So something pretty special that we're proud to do, and we sort of take these casks and release them as special releases. Really, we have one release a year that's 100% Islay, around 12,000 bottles, and outward of that, we do a couple of single casks or a couple of small batch releases. So they're slightly more sought after and harder to find. But you've chosen a few for this year. Yeah,
I just thought it was the time to showcase what we really are proud of is the single farm, single malt, and controlling every aspect of production, right from choosing the seed that we plant and sow in the ground, right the way through to bottling it. And this is two first fill, I think.
It's your eyesight again.
Bourbon barrels, small print. So 2 bourbon barrels from 2012. No, 2011.
two bourbon barrels from 2013. And 1 sherry butt from 2012.
And I think the combination of bourbon and sherry in a vatting works really well. You've got that fresh sort of lemon and citrus note from the bourbon barrels, and then you add a butt, and you just add a little bit more depth and spice and richness to just balance the two together. And I think working with those two cask types really brings together the whiskey that you release in a really nice way. I think this has this fresh, light sort of character, All our 100% Islay from our own barley have this light, fresh character about them. And when you're looking at sort of thinking of the sort of big hitting sherry notes, you don't have those, big hitting salty, briny, peaty character. They don't come through particularly. Maybe on the back of the palate you pick those up, but in a very light way. It's bottled at full strength, so we're looking at 55.3%. And it's different from our core expressions, which are from commercial malt at that higher peating level, where you have a little bit more of a punch to the style of whiskey. This has a delicate character to it, which is, for me, is something very special. But it's more to do with how we control every aspect of it. Shadow bottle whiskey, as I call it. Controlling completely every. And this was from publican barley. We've grown different barley varieties, and I talk about that a lot. Different barley varieties will give a different character. But you always go with a variety that's going to sustain the weather conditions here and produce you a good style of whiskey. And I think this has done it in many respects, and we're delighted with it.
Yeah, and when we first started, we could claim to be the only ones in Scotland to have a whiskey from barley field all the way through to bottle on one site, and it's probably a bit of a compliment now that others are now taking that on, and there's more farm distilleries, smaller independently owned distilleries all cropping up. Since 2005, there's been a huge number of them now join the industry as opposed to back when you started, Kilchoman.
And I think we've always taken the view that our Fèis bottling should be released on our open day. Distilleries are moving away from that a bit now and are releasing many more and releasing them worldwide. We think it's important. It's a Fèis open day. People have they've worked hard to get here. It's not the easiest place to get to, especially with the issues we're having with ferries at the moment. So we release it on our open day from the shop here. And we think that we'll continue doing that. It's one of 1,159 bottles, and a lot of them, quite a few of them will be sold today. There will be a few over, and I'm sure if you want to, you can pop over here. It's very easy. Pop over here and buy one.
Well, that was one of the questions actually that's coming in, was saying, so if you have got the tasting pack and saying that the whiskey zone there saying that it's outstanding, and are we going to make him fly from San Francisco to Islay? Or will Sam have one for him? Well, yes. Unfortunately, Sam, we tend to give our distributors a bottle occasionally if they've been good to us that year. But for us, as my dad said, it's important for us to have them for those who made all the trip to come to Islay and reward them for making the journey. So the bottles are available just from here. And Hans Peter as well from Kilchomania, who's leaving a comment there, which probably came to be the biggest fan of Kilchoman around the world. Definitely the biggest collection of Kilchoman anyway. That I've ever seen, but he's obviously enjoying it there. Wonderful sweetness, tropical fruits, citrus from the bourbon barrel, and a hint of sort of dark berry from the sherry butt. I think for me, this one, it is that lightness. The sherry's in there, but actually it's not. No. Although there's probably slightly more sherry influence than bourbon in this in terms of the cask, it's not too heavy. It's not like the Loch Gorm, which is that sort of viscous, sort of thick that's on the palate. It's actually really light, really fresh. Lots of citrus notes come through on it, and a nice long finish where it's sort of maritime salty smoke to it.
So we're delighted with that, and as I say, I mean, lucky you got a sample anyway, at least.
Well, not everyone.
Not everyone.
Some got a sample.
Okay. And Hans, Fino, it's nice to see you joining. Thanks for your email the other day. I will get back and answer that. It was only yesterday or the day before. We've been quite busy this week, so I'll get back to you, but thanks for your nice comments.
So that's the Fèis release, and in terms of things, I guess we've got upcoming later in the year for those who are looking for some of the future releases coming out. We've got a PX release that will be coming out later in the year. We've got the next edition of the 100% Islay, but for us, something we're really looking forward to is the 16-year-old release that we're going to be releasing towards the back end of the year at some point, which is the oldest general release we would have ever done. Even single casks, we've got the 16-year-old here today, but I don't think we've done an older one. So that really shows the progression of Kilchoman. For those who have followed us since we just released 3-year-old, 4-year-old stock, right up to now, that really shows the progression. So that's something that we're pretty excited to release. Sorry? Oh, we are father and son. We might not have mentioned that. Yeah, he was very old when he had me. So, and I'll just go through a few comments. If you do leave some comments and we haven't got to them, we will get back to them later. I say we, Catherine, we'll get back to them later and look through them. One there from Andreas. No, we don't want to read that. Didn't expect a good whiskey, but this one isn't good. It's fantastic. Oh, well, I'm a slow reader. I got there in the end. Barley notes, smoky character, well balanced. Yeah, I think that's one of the things. It's yeah, as I said, for me, the sherry you would expect almost more, but it actually allows that real spirit to come through in a big way and a nice, again, really nice long finish to it. So, Slange, he's got to get back and drink some more dark and gourmies cocktails that he's been enjoying.
I've been tasting some very interesting cocktails made from. This one is from a Loch Gorm.
Yeah.
They call it dark and gourmy.
Yeah. Although I don't think you'd know how to make one of them, so
no, I
leave
wouldn't
that to
know. But
others.
it's delicious, and there's a lot of ginger notes, but you get the character from the whiskey. I always think that a lot of cocktails are made with bland whiskey that you never know, where it's from. But certainly with Islay single malts, they come through as very distinctive in a cocktail, and I think they're great.
Yeah. Well, Slange, everyone, thanks for joining. We'll get back to the Fèis day behind us, but thanks for joining, and we'll hopefully see you back on Islay or on one of our tours in the near future.
Yeah, thanks very much for joining us.